I run a stall on Old Town Market's grimiest corner. But my left, I sees the truth in everything. That's why the bombshell they call the Gem Queen is standing in front of my table, holding a worthless chunk of rock and looking for a fight. How about a little bet, kiddo? If you lose, you're mine for the night. The onlookers start hooting and hollering, ready to watch the rich lady play with the poor boy. I activate my insight, my vision piercing not only through the stone to the flawless emerald within, but right through the fabric of her designer dress. Gambling on rocks is boring, I say, meeting her gaze. Let's make it interesting. If I win, from now on, you only wear what I pick out for you. Deal. The afternoon heat on the market street was a thick soup of dust and noise. The crowd circling my little stall wasn't here for my dubious collection of antiques. They were here for the woman standing before me. Sophia Sinclair, the Gem Queen. Everyone on this street knew her. Billionaire heiress, drop-dead gorgeous, and sharper than a diamond cutter. Today she was poured into a tailored red dress that sketched out curves that could stop traffic. Fire engine red lips, a look in her eyes that was 3 parts amusement and 7 parts pure arrogance. Her long, delicate fingers held a palm-sized rock. It was a classic dud, a gray, waxy-looking geode with no telltale crystalline formations, no promising mineral bands. Any seasoned rockhound would have tossed it without a second glance. How about a little bet, kiddo? Her voice wasn't loud, but it dropped into the noisy crowd like a stone in a pond, sending ripples everywhere. If you lose, you're mine for the night. Sophia's out to play again. That kid hit the jackpot. If she takes a liking to him, he can skip the next 30 years of work. Yeah, right? Look at him. Poor bastard probably can't even afford the ante. The jeers and laughter pricked at my ears like needles. My name is Ethan Vance. I'm just a guy with a stall. Nobody knows that after a lightning storm one night, my left I changed. Now, I can see the true nature of anything I look at. I looked at Sophia Sinclair, my expression calm. A faint, imperceptible golden light gathered in my left eye. My vision sliced through the dull gray rind of the stone. A green so deep and rich it was like a liquid jewel, a slumbering lake resting peacefully in the heart of the rock. A perfect emerald, museum quality, flawless. My gaze didn't linger. It shifted, moving down to Sophia herself. The expensive silk dress became transparent to my sight. Beneath the hem, high on the smooth skin of her thigh, was a small, square pain relief patch. My stare must have felt physical, because she seemed to notice. Her brow furrowed slightly, and she shifted her weight, a flicker of unease in her posture. I pulled my gaze back, a plan forming in my mind. She wasn't here to cause trouble. She was here for a reason. Gambling on rocks is boring, I said, meeting her probing eyes. Let's make it interesting. The crowd fell silent. Everyone thought I was insane, trying to negotiate with Sophia Sinclair. She raised an eyebrow, a spark of genuine interest in her eyes. Oh, and what's your idea of interesting? If I win, I said slowly, from now on, you only wear what I pick out for you. Deal. The moment the words left my mouth, the crowd erupted. This kid wasn't just crazy, he had a death wish. Sophia stared at me for a second, then burst into a peal of laughter, a bright, clear sound. She laughed so hard she swayed, the generous curve of her chest rising and falling. Interesting, very interesting. She stopped laughing, but her eyes were sharp as razors. All right, you have a deal, but if you lose, my terms still stand. You got it. I tapped the worthless-looking rock on my table. We bet on this. The smirk on her face deepened. Careful, kiddo. I'm afraid you're going to lose the shirt off your back. We'll see about that. I reached into my pocket and pulled out everything I had in the world. A few crumpled bills and a handful of change. $321.50. This is my stake. A fresh wave of laughter rolled through the crowd. Even Sophia's bodyguards looked at me with contempt. But Sophia just waved a hand, silencing them. It's enough, she said, her red lips parting slightly. Let's go to Miller's to have it cut. Old Man Miller's lapidary shop was at the end of the street, the most reputable place in the market. Our procession moved through the street like a parade, a long tail of gawkers following behind, clogging the narrow lane. Everyone wanted to see how the Gem Queen was going to crush this arrogant punk. Miller was a short, wiry man in his 50s. When he saw Sophia, His face broke into a welcoming grin. Ms. Sinclair, what a pleasure. What can I do for you? Sophia pointed to the rock in my hand. Miller, cut this. Miller took the rock, glanced at it, and wrinkled his nose. Ms. Sinclair, there's nothing here. This is a dud. Cutting it would be a waste of a good blade. Just cut it, Miller, and spare me the commentary. Sophia clearly wasn't in the mood for debate. Right away, Miller didn't say another word, clamping the rock onto the diamond saw. The high-pitched screech of the saw filled the air, spraying a mist of water and rock dust. Everyone's eyes were glued to the whining machine. Sophia stood beside me, her expensive perfume tickling my nose. It's not too late to back out, you know, she whispered in my ear, her voice a seductive purr. Just concede, and I'll be gentle with you tonight. I ignored her, my eyes fixed on the stone. The first cut went through. The exposed face was a flat, featureless gray. Nothing. Ha ha. A bust. I told you. There goes $300. That kid's gonna be working off this debt all night. In the crowd, a slick, greasy-looking guy was laughing the loudest. His name was Vic Russo. He was also in the gem business, a bitter rival of Sophia's who desperately wanted to get in her pants. Ms. Sinclair, why are you wasting your time with this nobody? It's beneath you, Vic sneered, sidling up to Sophia, though his eyes were on me like a snake's. Sophia didn't even look at him. Her gaze was fixed on me. Well, kiddo, want to keep going? I walked over to the saw, picked up a piece of chalk, and drew a line on the side of the rock. Right here, I said, my voice steady. Another half-inch. Miller gave me a skeptical look, but he did as I asked. The saw roared to life again. Everyone held their breath. As the blade slowly advanced, a faint sliver of green suddenly appeared on the cut's surface. It's green, Miller yelped, quickly shutting off the machine and hosing down the cut. Under the stream of water, the green became more vivid, more vibrant. It was only the size of a fingernail, but the color was pure and deep. He hit. He actually hit. How is that possible? Must be blind luck. The crowd was buzzing, eyes wide with disbelief. Vic Russo's smile froze on his face as if he'd been punched. A flicker of surprise crossed Sophia's face, but she quickly composed herself. Keep going, I said calmly, drawing another line on the opposite side. Miller's hands were shaking slightly. He'd been in this business for decades and knew the odds of finding high-grade color in a dud like this were astronomical. But when it happened, it was almost always a massive win. The screech of metal on stone echoed again. This time, every single person was staring at the cut. The blade pulled back, and Miller eagerly doused it with water. My God! A collective gasp, like a tidal wave of sound, swept through the crowd. The entire cut surface was a field of brilliant green. The stone was translucent, fine-grained, like a pool of clear spring water. Glass body. It's a glass body emerald, an old-timer in the crowd shouted, his voice trembling with excitement. What? What's something like that worth? 7 figures, at least. That kid just struck it rich. Vic Russo's face went white as a sheet. His lips trembled, but no words came out. Sophia's beautiful eyes were shining. She stared at me, her gaze intense, as if trying to see right through me. She bought the rock for $200 from an old prospector up in the mountains. Her own team of experts had written it off as worthless. She'd brought it to me as a game, a way to humiliate a street vendor. But now, the game had spun out of her control. Polish it, I said, stopping Miller as he was about to make a third cut. Don't cut, just polish a window. In the gem game, a bad cut sends you to hell, but a good polish takes you to heaven. Miller switched to a polishing head and began carefully grinding away the stone's rough exterior along the edge of the green. As the outer layer was stripped away, more and more green was revealed, the color growing deeper and richer. Finally, when a large window was polished into the side of the stone, everyone in the room sucked in a breath. It wasn't just brilliant green. It was the king of all greens. A deep, pure, overwhelmingly majestic emerald. Under the shop lights, it seemed to glow from within, radiating a light that was almost alive, captivating everyone who looked at it. The entire market street seemed to fall silent, the only sound the heavy breathing of the onlookers. A palm-sized, flawless, glass-body emerald of this quality was priceless. I win, I said, turning to face Sophia, a slight smile playing on my lips. Ms. Sinclair, I began, drawing out the words playfully according to our bet. The men in the crowd glared at me with looks of pure, unadulterated jealousy. To have control over the gem queen's wardrobe. What a glorious, thrilling prize. Sophia took a deep breath, reassuming her queenly composure. She walked up to me, her red lips so close to my ear I could feel their warmth. "You're good," she breathed, her breath like an orchid. "I'll honor the bet." However, her tone shifted, and her eyes grew cold. "Did you really think you could win against me and just walk out of here in one piece?" My stomach tightened. Of course, it wasn't going to be that simple. "You cheated, you little bastard." A furious roar cut through the tension. Vic Russo, his face twisted in a venomous snarl, stormed towards me, pointing a finger at my nose. "You and Miller were in on this together. You planted this stone. Ms. Sinclair, don't let him fool you." His accusation was the spark the jealous crowd needed. They immediately started chiming in. "Yeah, he must have cheated. There's no way a dud rock has an emerald like that inside. Search him. Get the cops." Old man Miller's face turned red with anger. "Russo, you're full of it. I've been running this shop for 30 years. I've never pulled a fast one in my life. Who knows if this kid paid you off?" Russo shot back, unwilling to let it go. He had lost face today, and he was determined to get it back. A few of the bulky guys standing behind him moved forward, surrounding me. Sophia frowned, about to speak, but Russo cut her off. "Ms. Sinclair, you stay out of this. This is personal between me and this punk." He gave me a venomous look. "I swear, if I don't break both his legs today, my name isn't Vic Russo." He was making an example of me, getting his revenge, and showing Sophia he wasn't to be trifled with. The atmosphere was electric, ready to explode. The crowd backed away, not wanting to get caught in the crossfire. Sophia's bodyguard stepped in front of her, but she didn't order them to intervene, just watched Russo with cold eyes, as if weighing her options. I knew what she was thinking. She could help me, but she was also watching, waiting to see what I was really made of. If I was just some lucky punk, she wouldn't mind watching Vic stomp me into the dirt. But if I had another card to play, that was a different story. "Vic," I said suddenly. My voice was quiet, but it carried clearly to every person in the room. "On the 15th of last month, you bought a Tiffany Favril glass vase from Widow Peterson over on the west side. You paid her $5,000 for it. You turned around and sold it to a collector from Hong Kong for $500,000. Am I wrong?" Vic's aggressive posture melted away. His eyes widened. How did you know that?" He had been extremely careful. Besides him and the collector, no one else should have known. I didn't answer him. I just kept going. "That vase has a tiny hairline fracture near the base. You repaired it with a special epoxy, impossible to see with the naked eye, but under a 365 nanometer UV light. That crack gives off a faint fluorescent glow. And that collector from Hong Kong, I hear he's a big fan of using UV lights on his collection." My left, I didn't just see through rock. It could see the molecular structure of glass, the true nature of any material. The color drained from Vic's face. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He knew I was telling the absolute truth. That collector was notoriously picky. If he found out he'd spent $500,000 on a damaged piece, the consequences would be catastrophic for Vic. "And another thing," I said, locking my eyes on him. "That pre-Columbian jade amulet you sold to the CEO of Sterling Corp last week? It was a fake, carved from Russian serpentine by one of your guys. In fact, if you look closely at the knot in the cord, you'll find a single strand of the carver's hair caught by mistake. If Mr. Sterling finds out, you think Russo Gems will be in business much longer here in Port Sterling?" Who the hell are you?" Vic was panicking now, his eyes filled with terror. I was laying out his darkest, most guarded secrets. How could a street vendor like me know every single detail? The crowd was stunned into silence. They were looking at me like I was some kind of monster. "Who I am doesn't matter," I said, taking a step toward him. "Now, do you still think I cheated?" Beeks Nazbukulat. He almost collapsed. He knew he was finished. Any one of the secrets I held could ruin him, could land him in prison. I was wrong. "Mr. Vance, sir, I was wrong." All his earlier arrogance was gone. He was bowing, practically groveling. "Get out of my sight," I said, my voice flat. Vic scrambled away as if he'd been granted a pardon, dragging his goons with him and disappearing around the corner. The storm had passed as quickly as it had arrived. The shop was dead silent. Everyone was looking at me with a newfound sense of awe and fear. For the first time, a look of genuine, intense interest appeared in Sophia Sinclair's beautiful eyes. She waved her hand, and one of her bodyguards carefully secured the priceless emerald. Then, she walked toward me and held out a sleek black metal card. My number and my address. Don't forget our bet. With that, she turned and, flanked by her guards, slid into a Rolls-Royce Phantom and sped away. I held the cool metal card in my hand. I knew my story with this woman was just beginning, but so was the trouble. The next day, my stall was smashed to pieces. Everything I owned, all my pots and trinkets, was shattered. On the ground, scrawled in big letters with red spray paint, was the word dead. It was Vic. He didn't dare confront me directly, so he resorted to cheap tactics like this. I stared at the wreckage, my eyes turning cold. It seems some people don't learn their lesson until you make them feel real pain. I didn't call the cops. They wouldn't find any evidence. I took out the card Sophia had given me and dialed the number. It rang once before she picked up, her voice lazy and magnetic. Hello, it's me, Ethan. Oh, thinking about me already, kiddo? Are you calling to pick out my clothes? My stall was trashed, I said, my voice even. There was a pause on the other end. Big Rusu. Yeah. Do you need me to handle it? Her voice was unreadable. No, I said. I just want to ask you something. Where's the main office for Russo Gems? A soft laugh came through the phone. 138 King Street. He owns the whole building. Why? Thinking of smashing it up. An eye for an eye, I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. By yourself. There was a hint of doubt in her tone. He keeps a dozen thugs on payroll there. Real bruisers. I'm enough. I hung up, hailed a cab, and headed straight for King Street. The Russo Gems headquarters was an imposing 5-story building flanked by 2 massive stone lions. The whole place was decked out in gaudy gold trim, screaming new money. I was stopped at the door by 2 guards in black suits. Hold it. What do you want? I'm here to see Vic Russo. The guards looked me up and down, taking in my cheap clothes, their faces twisting into sneers. You think Mr. Russo sees just anybody? You got an appointment? Get lost. I didn't waste words. A golden light flickered in my left eye as I looked at the guard's body. I saw an old injury on his 3rd lumbar vertebra, one that ached every time it rained. You hurt your back a few years ago, didn't you? A fall from high place. And lately, your right leg has started going numb, I said coolly. The guard's face changed instantly. He stared at me as if he'd seen a ghost. How? How did you know that? I don't just know about it. I can fix it. I held up 2 fingers. 3 minutes and the pain is gone. The other guard scoffed. You're full of it. I ignored him, my eyes on the first guard. Want to give it a try? He hesitated, but the chronic pain won out over his skepticism. Ow! Stand still. Don't move. I stepped forward, my fingers pressed together, and tapped a specific point on his lower back 3 times with a strange rhythm. A faint current of energy flowed from my fingertips into his pressure points. It was an ability I discovered after gaining my insight. I could clear blocked energy pathways by stimulating acupressure points. The guard felt a wave of warmth spread from his lower back through his entire body. The gnawing ache in his spine vanished, replaced by a feeling of lightness he hadn't experienced in years. It's a miracle. The pain is gone, he exclaimed, twisting his torso, his face a mask of shock and joy. The other guard was dumbfounded. So can I go in now? I asked. Right this way, sir. Please come in. The guard's attitude did a complete 180 as he bowed and scraped, personally escorting me inside. I walked straight to the elevator and pressed the button for the top floor. Vic's office. The elevator doors opened onto a hallway where 4 massive goons were standing guard. They saw me and immediately moved to block my path. Who are you? You're not supposed to be up here. I didn't have time for them. I moved like a ghost, weaving through them. Before they could even react, I had flicked each of them on a pressure point on their necks. All 4 men froze, then collapsed to the floor in a heap, unconscious. I pushed open the heavy mahogany doors to the office. Vic was on his desk, his arms wrapped around a provocatively dressed woman. He jumped when he saw me, shoving the woman away. Ethan? How? How did you get up here? I'm here to collect on a debt. I walked toward him, my eyes like chips of ice. What? What do you want? I'm telling you, This place is full of my men. Vic blustered, trying to sound tough. Is that so? They might all be taking a nap right now. As if on cue, Vic's phone rang. It was the guard from downstairs. Boss, it's bad. The guys, they're all down. The last bit of color drained from Vic's face. He finally realized I wasn't joking. Mr. Vance. Sir, I was wrong. I'll never do it again. He dropped to his knees, grabbing my leg and begging for mercy. Your stall, I'll pay for it. I'll pay you 10 times what it was worth. Too late. I kicked him away and let my eyes sweep over the collection of antiques and gems in his office. My insight flared. Fake, fake, still fake. 9 out of 10 pieces were cheap knockoffs. But in the corner, in a plain wooden box, was one genuine article. I walked over and opened the box. Inside was a small, intricately carved gemstone. It was uncut, but it seemed to drink the light. I focused my left eye on it, and a line of information appeared in my mind. Fragment of the Star of Providence. Colonia Lera. Lost national treasure. Priceless. So this is where it was. I picked up the gemstone and slipped it into my pocket. This should cover the interest. No, you can't. Vic screamed, jumping up like a scalded cat. That's my nest egg. You can't take it. He lunged at me like a madman. I sidestepped him and chopped him neatly on the back of the neck. He went down without a sound. When I walked out of Russo Gems, a fire-engine red Ferrari was parked at the curb. Sophia Sinclair was leaning against the door, dressed in black leather, her long hair blowing in the wind. She looked impossibly cool. She whistled when she saw me. Well, you work fast, kiddo. What are you doing here? I asked. Came to see if you got yourself killed. Maybe collect the body. She looked me up and down. Looks like I worried for nothing. Get in. I'm taking you somewhere. The Ferrari sliced through traffic, finally pulling up in front of a discreet, private club. No sign, just a heavy bronze door. Sophia led me inside. The interior was another world, decorated in a classic, elegant style, with a faint scent of sandalwood in the air. A stunning middle-aged woman in a silk dress greeted us. Sophia, good to see you. Lana, get him a private room. And your best tea, Sophia instructed. We were shown to a quiet room, where Lana personally prepared a pot of incredibly rare Wooey mountain oolong. So, what's your endgame with Vic? Sophia asked, taking a sip of tea. He won't let this go, I said. That gemstone was more than just money to Vic. My insight had seen something else beneath it in the box. A flash drive. It contained the records of all of Vic's illegal dealings. That was his real nest egg. Of course he won't, Sophia said with a small smile. But he's got bigger problems right now. I just heard that the collector from Hong Kong is on his way over. And Sterling Corp has already sent their legal team. He's a little busy at the moment. I looked at her, surprised. You did that. I just happened to accidentally let a few things you said slip to the right people, she said as if it were nothing. This woman wasn't just beautiful. She was absolutely ruthless. Why are you helping me? I had to ask. We were just two people who'd made a bet. Because you're interesting, she said, putting down her cup and leaning forward, her eyes locked on mine. Ethan Vance, who are you, really? How did you know all of Vic's secrets? And that emerald? How are you so sure? She finally asked the real question. I was silent for a moment. If I told you, would you believe me? Try me. I can see the truth in everything. A long silence filled the room. Sophia just stared at me, her eyes searching, skeptical but not mocking. After a long moment, she smiled. Okay, I believe you. It was a beautiful smile like a blooming rose, gorgeous but thorny. If you're really that good, then I have another bet for you. You in. What's the bet? In 3 days, Port Sterling is hosting the biggest raw gemstone summit in the country. Every major dealer on the East Coast will be there. I want you to come with me. Be my expert, Sophia said. If you help me win the grand prize auction, the King's Stone, I'll give you 10% of my company, Sinclair Jewels. But if you lose, or if you make a bad call and cost me money. She paused, her red lips curving into a dangerous smile. Then your life belongs to me. Sinclair Jewels was the empire Sophia had built from scratch. It was worth billions. 10% was a fortune. She was betting a fortune against my skill. And my life. This woman was a certified lunatic. So what do you say? You in? She asked, her eyes challenging me. Why not? I picked up my teacup and downed it in one go. But I have a condition of my own. Name it. If I win, besides the shares, I want you to promise me one thing. What is it? You'll find out when the time comes, I said. leaving her in suspense. Sophia gave me a long, searching look, then nodded. All right, it's a deal. For the next 3 days, I stayed at Sophia's villa. It was a mansion perched on a hill overlooking the city, a sprawling estate with a pool and gardens, the height of luxury. She didn't mention our new bed. Instead, she made me honor our first one, picking out her clothes. Her walk-in closet was bigger than my old apartment, filled with an endless sea of designer clothes, bags, and shoes. Go on, pick anything you like. I'll model it for you, she said, leaning against the doorframe with a playful smile. I didn't touch the sexy, flamboyant gowns. My left eye told me that this woman wrapped herself in strength and glamour. But deep down, she was hiding a weariness and a vulnerability she never showed the world. From a corner of the closet, I pulled out a simple, white linen sundress. This one, Sophia was stunned. This is a cheap thing I bought from a street market years ago when I was just starting out. I haven't worn it in ages. Go change, I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. She gave me a skeptical look, but took the dress into the changing room. A few minutes later, when she walked out, I was genuinely taken aback. Without the queen's battle armor, dressed in that simple white dress, she looked like a different person. Less aggressive, more gentle and pure, like the girl next door who didn't have a care in the world. She fiddled with her hair, looking uncomfortable. Well, is it weird? It's beautiful, I said honestly. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, a distant look in her eyes, as if lost in a memory. That day, she wore the white dress, no makeup, and we sat in her garden, drinking tea and just talking. For the first time, I learned that she wasn't born into wealth. She was a small-town girl who had clawed her way to the top with nothing but her own guts and determination. She carried the expectations of her entire family and the livelihoods of hundreds of employees on her shoulders. She fought battles in the corporate world every single day. She couldn't afford to be weak, and she didn't dare show it. The title Gem Queen was both her crown and her cage. In that moment, I felt a pang of sympathy for this woman. The day of the Gemstone Summit arrived. The event was held at the Port Sterling International Convention Center. Security was tight. Everyone who got in was either a billionaire or a major player in the industry. Sophia was back in full queen mode, wearing a stunning black strapless evening gown and a set of blinding diamond jewelry. Her presence commanded the entire room the moment she walked in. I was in an Armani suit she'd picked out for me, standing by her side like a bodyguard or an assistant. Nervous? She asked quietly. They should be the ones who are nervous, I replied, my gaze sweeping over the display cases of cut stones, a golden light flickering in my left eye. Most of them were all flash, no substance. The summit had two types of auctions, open and silent. Open auctions were straightforward, highest bidder wins. Silent auctions were where stones were numbered, and bidders wrote down their offers on a slip of paper and put in a box. At the end, the highest bid won. Silent auctions were a true test of skill and nerve. Our target is the king stone at the end, Sophia said, her eyes on a massive object covered by a red cloth in the center of the exhibition hall. The stone weighed over 600 pounds and was the main event of the summit. The opening bid was $50 million. No ruse. Let's have a look around first. I led Sophia on a leisurely stroll through the hall. With every raw stone we passed, I would give it a seemingly casual glance. Lot 037, base price $3 million. Pass. Lot 052, base $5 million. We can bid 6. Lot 079, base $8 million. Garbage. Don't touch it. I gave the orders, and Sophia, without a moment's hesitation, had her assistant place the bids. She showed me absolute 100% trust. Our activity soon drew the attention of one person in particular. Well, if it isn't Ms. Sinclair. Fancy meeting you here, a snide voice drawled. I turned to see a middle-aged man in a silk suit and gold-rimmed glasses. Beside him stood a serene-looking old man. Marcus Thorne, Sophia said, her face turning to ice. Marcus Thorne, owner of Thorne Gems, the other major jewelry powerhouse in Port Sterling. Sophia's biggest rival. You're certainly throwing your money around today, Ms. Sinclair, Thorne said with a smirk. I just wonder if this new expert of yours is up to snuff. His dismissive gaze landed on me. The man by my side is in a league of his own, Sophia shot back. Mr. Hemlock, it's been a while. You're looking well. The man she called Hemlock was the old man beside Thorn. He was a legendary gemologist in the region, known as the Golden Eye. He'd been in the business for 50 years and had almost never made a mistake. Hemlock stroked his white beard, his half-closed eyes sweeping over me. The youth of today are so impatient, he said dismissively. The subtext was clear. I was a nobody. We'll see who's impatient when the bids are opened, I retorted, not backing down. Big words for a little boy. Thorn sneered. Ms. Sinclair, how about we make this more interesting? Whoever loses the bid for the Kingstone today agrees to exit the gem market in Port Sterling for good. What do you say? He was declaring all-out war. Sophia's face paled. To exit the Port Sterling market would mean years of her hard work would go down the drain. The stakes were too high. What's the matter? Scared? Thorn taunted. If you're afraid, just concede now. Sign over Sinclair jewels to me, and I'll let you keep a little of your dignity. Thorn, you've gone too far. Sophia was shaking with anger. Take the bet, I said suddenly. Sophia looked at me in shock. Thorn and Hemlock were also taken aback. Do you have any idea what you're saying, kid? Thorn asked, as if he'd just heard the world's funniest joke. I said, take the bet, I repeated, looking straight at Sophia, my eyes firm. With me here, you can't lose. For some reason, looking into my eyes, Sophia's frantic heart began to calm. She took a deep breath, met Thorn's gaze, and said, word by word, fine. I'll take your bet. Once the deal was struck, the atmosphere in the hall changed. Everyone knew that tonight, the two titans of Port Sterling's gem industry were about to engage in a battle to the death. Soon, the results of the silent auction were announced. Every single stone I'd told Sophia to bid on was a massive success. Lot 052, which we'd won for $6 million, was cut open to reveal a rare violet jadeite inside, valued at over $30 million. That one stone alone had made us a fortune. Thorn's side, guided by Hemlock, had a few minor wins, but their profits were nothing compared to ours. Thorn's face grew darker and darker. For the first time, a flicker of gravity appeared on Hemlock's calm, weathered face. He looked at me with suspicion. Who are you, boy? Who is your teacher? He finally asked. I'm self-taught, I replied coolly. Impossible, Hemlock declared. Without decades of experience, no one could have such a keen eye. You must be using some kind of trick. When you can't win, you accuse the other side of cheating. So this is the famous integrity of the Golden Eye, I scoffed. You. Hemlock's beard bristled with rage. That's enough, Hemlock. Why bother arguing with a child? Thorn said, forcing down his anger. The real contest hasn't even begun. Once we have the Kingstone, we'll see who's laughing. Finally, it was time for the Kingstone auction. The staff pulled the red cloth off the massive stone. It was a monster from the old mines, a black-skinned behemoth covered in wrinkles and crevices like some ugly creature. But in several polished windows on its surface, an almost supernatural green light shone through. It's emerald, the king of emeralds. My God, if the whole thing is like that, what would it be worth? The hall erupted. Hemlock walked up to the stone, pulling out a magnifying glass and a high-intensity flashlight, and began to study it meticulously. After a full 10 minutes, he straightened up, his face flushed with excitement. Mr. Thorn, it's a grand slam. An absolute grand slam. The quality, the color, it's the finest I've ever seen in my life. The emerald inside is likely a single, massive crystal. This is a once-in-a-century treasure. With Hemlock's confirmation, Thorn's confidence soared. He shot a triumphant look at Sophia. Get ready to pack your bags and get out of Port Sterling, Sinclair. The auction began. The opening bid was $50 million. $60 million. Thorn immediately raised it by 10. $65 million, Sophia countered, raising her paddle. $80 million. Thorn fired back. $85 million. The price skyrocketed, quickly breaking the $100 million mark. Everyone else in the room was just a spectator. This was a war between two people. When the price hit $150 million, beads of sweat had formed on Sophia's forehead. This was approaching the limit of her available capital. She looked at me nervously, waiting for my signal. I hadn't moved from my spot, hadn't even gone near the stone. My left, I had already seen everything. The brilliant green was indeed a massive emerald. But deep within its core was a spiderweb of fine, black fractures. The cracks spread from the inside out, compromising the entire structure of the gem. In the trade, they called it moss-eaten, a fatal flaw. Despite the massive size of the emerald, the fractures meant you couldn't cut a single clean stone from it. Its value was drastically reduced. At most, it was worth maybe 70 or 80 million. At 150, it was already wildly overpriced. Hemlock had been deceived. He'd seen the surface, but he hadn't seen the truth. 160 million, Thorn shouted, raising his paddle again. He was all in, determined to win. Sophia's palm was slick with sweat. She looked at me nervously, her eyes asking the question. I gave a slight shake of my head. Sophia understood and lowered her paddle. 160 million going once. 160 million going twice. 160 million sold. The auctioneer's gavel fell. Thorn had won the King's Stone for the astronomical price of $160 million. Ha ha ha. Thorn roared with laughter. Sophia, you lose. The entire room looked at him with envy and awe. Hemlock stood proudly, basking in the praise. Well, Ms. Sinclair, Thorn said, walking up to her and looking down his nose. According to our agreement, I believe it's time for you to honor your end of the deal. Sophia's face was ashen. Her body trembled slightly. It was over. Everything was over. Years of her hard work, about to be handed over to her rival. Not so fast, I said, stepping in front of her. It's not over till it's over. Still talking tough when you're about to be thrown out on the street, kid? Thorn scoffed. The stone is mine. What are you going to do about it? Are you brave enough to cut it open, right here, right now? I asked, staring him down. Why wouldn't I be? Thorn was eager to show off his victory. Bring out the saws. Today, I'm going to let everyone here witness a true wonder of the world. 2 large saws were rolled out. Everyone crowded around, eager to see the treasure within the $160 million stone. Thorn personally directed the workers, drawing lines on the stone. Hemlock offered his expertise, telling them where to cut to preserve the gem inside. The saws screamed to life. Everyone held their breath. The first cut revealed a wall of solid green. The deep, majestic emerald was so brilliant it was almost blinding. It's a win, a massive win. Incredible, Mr. Thorn. Masterful, Mr. Hemlock. Triumphant smiles spread across Thorn's and Hemlock's faces. Sophia's last glimmer of hope died. She closed her eyes in despair. Keep cutting, I said, my voice still calm. Thorn snorted and waved for the workers to continue. The second cut, then the third. As more of the stone was sliced away, the truth was slowly revealed. The excitement on the crowd's faces slowly turned to shock. Wait, are those cracks? My God, it's full of them. There are so many. Deep within the massive emerald was a dense web of black, intersecting lines like a giant spiderweb, shattering the beautiful gem into a million worthless fragments. You couldn't even get a small ringstone out of it. It was a dud, a $160 million dud. No. Impossible. Hemlock's face went white. He stumbled forward, his hands tracing the cracks in disbelief, muttering to himself. How can this be? I examined it. There were no cracks. Thorn's smile was frozen on his face. The world started to spin, and everything went black as he nearly collapsed. $160 million. He bet almost everything he had, and it was all gone. So, Mr. Thorn, I said, walking up to him. Who lost? A spray of blood erupted from his mouth as the massive shock hit him, and he crumpled to the floor. The hall was utterly silent. The high-stakes gamble had ended in a way no one could have possibly imagined. Thorn was rushed to the hospital. News that Thorn Gems was on the brink of bankruptcy spread through Port Sterling like wildfire. And Sophia Sinclair was the biggest winner of all. She had not only saved her empire, but had eliminated her greatest competitor without lifting a finger. On the way back to the villa, Sophia was quiet, occasionally stealing complex glances at me. The atmosphere in the red Ferrari was charged. You knew there was a problem with that stone all along, didn't you? She finally asked when we got home. Yes. Why didn't you tell me earlier? If I had, would Thorn have still fallen into the trap? I countered. She was stunned for a moment, then gave a wry smile. She was right. If I told her from the start, she might not have believed me. and an old fox like Thorn would never have walked into such an obvious trap. I had been playing a much bigger game, and everyone else was just a piece on the board. Ethan, I just can't figure you out, she sighed, pouring herself a glass of red wine. Then don't try. I walked over, took the glass from her hand, and drained it. Hey, she said, looking at me with a hint of indignation. Don't forget our bet, I said, leaning in close, my mouth next to her ear. You still owe me one thing. The warm air of my breath on her ear made a blush creep up her cheeks. What is it? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Be my woman. The words were direct, a blunt demand. Sophia's body went rigid, her eyes wide with shock. She never imagined I would ask for something like that. To be the kept man of the Gem Queen? The story would shake the entire city. Are you crazy? She asked, instinctively taking a step back. I'm not crazy, I said, cornering her against the wall. You like to gamble, don't you? How about one more bet? Bet on what? She stammered, trapped by my presence, her heart hammering against her ribs. I bet I can make you fall in love with me. My words were a bombshell that exploded in her mind. Love? That word was a luxury, a distant dream for her. She was used to calculations, to transactions. She had long forgotten what it felt like to love someone. And if I don't fall in love with you, she asked, biting her lip, then I'll let you go, and we'll be even, I said, looking her in the eyes, completely serious. But until I say we're done, you, Sophia Sinclair, are my woman. It was overbearing, aggressive, leaving no room for refusal. Sophia's mind was in turmoil. She looked at this man, so much younger than her, yet his eyes were as deep as a starry sky, as if he could see through all her defenses. When she was with him, she always found herself letting her guard down. The feeling was dangerous, but was also intoxicating. Okay, she whispered, nodding almost involuntarily. I'll take that bet. The moment I had her consent, I couldn't hold back any longer. I lowered my head and claimed the red lips I had coveted for so long. Her body was stiff at first, then slowly melted into my arms as she awkwardly began to kiss me back. That night, no more words were spoken. We simply used the most primal language to stake our claim on each other. When I woke up the next morning, Sophia was gone. On the nightstand was a signed stock transfer agreement and a bank card. The agreement stated that 10% of Sinclair Jewels was now mine, free and clear. The card had $100 million on it. There was also a note, written in her elegant, sharp handwriting. The money and shares are your payment. As for our other bet, the game has just begun. I smiled, tossing the agreement and the card into a drawer. That wasn't what I wanted. I picked up my phone and called her. Hello. Her voice was hoarse, as if from a hangover. Time to wake up, Your Majesty, I teased. Today it's time to honor our first bet. What bet? Picking out her clothes. There was silence on the other end. Ethan, don't push it. A bet's a bet, I said, my tone firm. I'll be downstairs from your office in half an hour. If you're not there, I'm coming up, and then your entire company can see how their queen gets bullied by me. I hung up before she could reply. I knew she would come. She was a woman of her word, even for a promise she hated. Half an hour later, I was standing outside the Sinclair Jewels headquarters. Sophia was already there, dressed in a sharp business suit, her makeup flawless. She was the high and mighty Gem Queen again, but the flicker of annoyance and awkwardness in her eyes betrayed her. Where are we going? She asked, her voice cold. You'll see. I didn't take her to any high-end boutiques. Instead, I led her to one of the most ordinary shopping streets in the city. It was bustling with people, full of the lively energy of everyday life. Sophia, in her 6-inch heels, navigated the uneven pavement with a deep frown. She was clearly out of her element. What is this about? She finally snapped. I stopped in front of a plainly decorated clothing store. We're going in. No. Sophia glanced at the store, her face a mask of disgust. I can't wear clothes from a place like this. Did you forget our bet? I asked, looking at her. She gritted her teeth and reluctantly followed me inside. The clothes were all common styles, costing maybe $20 or $30 apiece. Sophia stood there, radiating a do-not-approach aura, completely out of place. The sales clerk wanted to help, but was too intimidated to come near. I ignored her and started browsing. My left, I could see the quality of the fabric, the details of the tailoring. I could even visualize how the clothes would look on her. Soon, I had picked out an outfit. A simple white t-shirt, a pair of light blue jeans, and white canvas sneakers. Go on, try these on, I said, handing them to her. I will not, she refused instantly. Ethan, you're doing this just to humiliate me. For the billionaire queen to wear cheap, common clothes was worse than death. Sophia, do you really think you're so far above everyone else that you can only wear designer labels and diamonds? I asked, my eyes sharp. Have you forgotten you were once a small-town girl? Have you forgotten what you looked like in that white sundress? My words hit her like a hammer. Her face went pale, her body trembling slightly. You, go change, I said, pushing the clothes into her arms, my tone firm. I don't want to see the gem queen built out of brands and jewels. I want to see the real Sophia Sinclair. She looked at me, her eyes a swirl of complex emotions. After a long moment, she took the clothes and disappeared into the fitting room. When she came out, the entire store went quiet. All eyes were on her. The simple t-shirt and jeans looked better on her than any designer gown. It was a beauty that was pure, stripped of all artifice. She looked like a college freshman, clean, innocent, and breathtaking. She stood there awkwardly, not knowing what to do with her hands. Is it weird? She asked quietly. You're stunning, I said with sincere admiration. I walked over and took her hand. It was a little cold. Come on, I'm taking you somewhere. I led her out of the store and into the bustling crowd. We walked around like any other couple, eating street food, watching a movie, and sitting on a park bench for a long time. At first, she was uncomfortable, but slowly, the ice around her began to melt. She even started to smile. That evening, I took her back to the villa. At the door, she suddenly spoke. Ethan, thank you. For what? For letting me be a normal person for a day, she said, her eyes holding a tenderness I had never seen before. I had a lot of fun today. You'll have even more fun in the future, I said, gently tapping her nose. Just then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered, and a cold, electronically distorted voice came through the line. Ethan Vance, I presume. Who is this? I frowned. Who I am doesn't matter. What matters is that your woman, Sophia Sinclair, is now in my hands. My blood ran cold. I instinctively looked at Sophia beside me. She was standing right there. What are you talking about? Aha, don't worry, the voice chuckled. You'll find out soon enough. A little friendly advice. Vic Russo was just the beginning. Anyone who messes with the syndicate has to be prepared to die. Enjoy your last night together. The line went dead. The syndicate? My mind reeled. I knew Vic and Thorne had powerful backers, but I never imagined it was an organization as vast as the syndicate. They were a global criminal network. Their influence spread far and wide, a different league entirely from street thugs like Vic. I was in deep trouble. What's wrong? Sophia asked, seeing the look on my face. Nothing, I said, shaking my head, not wanting to worry her. Wrong number. But my left, I was already active, scanning the darkness around us. The villa was quiet, but I could see a dozen shadows hiding in the woods a few hundred yards away. They were all armed. A thick, murderous aura enveloped the entire property. They were here for me, or rather, for me and Sophia. Don't go home tonight, I told her. Why? Just because. I pulled her inside the villa and locked the door. Tonight, you're staying with me. My voice was heavy with a gravity she had never heard before. Sophia seemed to sense something was wrong. She didn't ask any more questions, just nodded silently. The storm was about to break. Deep in the night, the villa was silent. Sophia was fast asleep in my arms. She seemed truly exhausted, her breathing deep and even. I couldn't sleep. My left eye remained open, a high-precision radar scanning everything outside the villa. The shadows in the woods hadn't moved. They were waiting for the perfect moment. I was waiting for them to make the first move. I was exposed. They were hidden. I couldn't afford to be reckless. I slipped out of bed without waking Sophia and went to the window. Under the moonlight, the garden looked eerie and still. I could clearly see them spreading out, forming a perimeter completely surrounding the house. They moved with professional precision. Trained killers. Their leader was a man with a long scar on his face. My insight pierced through the walls and focused on him. I saw the model of the pistol tucked in his belt, the distribution of his muscle mass, even the accelerated beat of his heart from nervous energy. And I saw something deeper. On his chest was a strange tattoo of a coiled black dragon. And beneath the tattoo, I saw a failing heart. He had a severe heart condition, kept in check only by a specific medication. And that medication was in his left pocket. A plan instantly formed in my mind. The minutes ticked by. 3 a.m., the hour when the body is at its weakest. They finally made their move. A dozen shadows vaulted the villa's wall like ghosts, silently closing in from all sides. Their target was clear, the master bedroom, where Sophia and I were. I went back to the bed, looked at Sophia's sleeping face, and gently kissed her forehead. Then I took a baseball bat from the closet. It was the only thing in the villa that could be used as a weapon. From outside the door, I heard the faint metallic click of a lock being picked. They were here. I took a deep breath, flattened myself against the wall behind the door, and held my breath. The lock clicked open. 3 men in black slipped into the room. The moment they stepped inside, I moved. The baseball bat whistled through the air, crashing into the back of the first man's neck. He went down without a sound. The other 2 reacted instantly, pulling daggers and lunging at me. In the darkness, I moved like a panther, not retreating but advancing. I sidestepped a blade, and with a flick of my wrist, brought the bat down on the other man's hand. A sickening crack echoed in the room, followed by a muffled scream. His wrist was shattered. 2 down, 1 to go. The last man saw that things had gone south and tried to run, but I wasn't about to let him. I lunged forward and kicked him squarely in the back. He flew like a cannonball into the wall and slumped to the floor, unconscious. The entire engagement took less than 10 seconds, and it was completely silent. I didn't pause. I burst out of the room. For more men were charging down the hallway. I didn't engage them head-on. I used my knowledge of the villa's layout to play a deadly game of hide-and-seek. My goal wasn't to kill them all. It was to find the man with the scar, cut off the head of the snake. My left eye was my guide. I could see every man's position, every movement. To me, it was like playing a video game with a map revealed. They had no secrets. I avoided direct confrontation, using the villa's complex architecture to circle around behind them. Scarface was leading the remaining men, preparing to flank the master bedroom from the other side. He clearly had no idea his men had been taken out so quickly. "Useless," he muttered, pulling his pistol. The moment he raised his gun, I leaped from the second-floor balcony, dropping on him like a hawk. He was shocked, instinctively trying to fire. But I was faster. The baseball bat left my hand, flying like an arrow, and smashed into his wrist. "Arg!" Scarface screamed as his gun clattered to the floor. His wrist was a mangled mess. The remaining men saw their leader was down and charged at me with a vengeance. "Don't move!" I roared, my hand already clamped around Scarface's throat. Another step, and I'll snap his neck. They all froze, unwilling to risk their leader's life. Who the hell are you?" Scarface choked out, his eyes wide with terror. He couldn't understand how a dozen armed professional killers could be taken down so easily by one man. "The man who's sending you to hell." I squeezed, ready to end it. But just then, a gunshot shattered the night. A bullet, from an angle I never expected, screamed toward my back. A sniper. They had a sniper. I hadn't anticipated that. In that split second, I had no time to dodge. All I could do was instinctively twist my body, pulling Scarface in front of me as a shield. Thump! The bullet slammed into Scarface's chest, sending a spray of blood into the air. The impact threw me off balance. And in that moment, everything changed. Scarface, who should have been dead, suddenly wrenched himself free. His eyes flew open as he pulled a second, smaller pistol from his jacket and pressed it against my temple. "You fell for it, kid." The pain and fear were gone from his face, replaced by a chilling, triumphant grin. He was wearing a bulletproof vest. The gunshot was a setup, a trick to make me lower my guard so they could take me down. My stomach dropped. I'd been careless. I had underestimated just how cunning and ruthless these people were. "Tie him up," Scarface barked. The remaining killers swarmed me, binding my hands and feet with thick zip ties. "Let's go." They dragged me out of the villa. As we passed through the living room, I saw Sophia. She must have woken up. She was standing on the stairs in her nightgown, her face pale with terror. She was holding a vase, as if she was about to charge down and save me. "Don't move," Scarface yelled, pointing his gun at her. "One more step, and I'll blow his head off." Sophia froze, tears welling in her eyes. Ethan, don't worry, I said, forcing a smile. I'll be back. They shoved me into a black van. The engine roared to life, and we disappeared into the night. Sophia ran out after us, but all she could do was watch the taillights fade, before collapsing to her knees with a cry of despair. I was taken to an abandoned warehouse on the docks. The warehouse was brightly lit, filled with dozens of men in black suits. They stood with a quiet confidence, their bodies honed and ready. These were serious fighters. At the far end of the warehouse was a large, ornate wooden chair. Sitting in it was an old man in a white silk shirt, rolling 2 walnuts in his hand. He looked to be in his 60s, with graying hair and a thin face, but his eyes were sharp and predatory. He radiated an aura of absolute authority. This had to be the head of the syndicate in Port Sterling. Scarface shoved me in front of the old man. "Dragon," he said respectfully, "we brought him." The dragon looked up, his eyes sweeping over me. "So you're the one," he said, his voice quiet but heavy with menace. "You're the one who hurt my people and disrupted my business." "That's me," I said, meeting his gaze without flinching. "Yeah, you've got guts," the dragon chuckled. "But young men with guts who don't know their place always end up paying a price. Thorne and Russo were my dogs. You beat my dog, you slapped my face. Your dogs were biting people. I just taught them some manners. You should be thanking me." I shot back. "Insolent punk." Scarface roared, kicking me hard behind the knees. I grunted in pain as I was forced to the ground. "A sharp tongue won't save you, boy. We'll see how strong your bones are," the dragon said, standing up and walking toward me. "I'll give you a chance. Tell me the secret to your gem-finding ability, and let me have some fun with that woman of yours for a few days, and I'll let you live." His words ignited a murderous rage within me. "You old bastard," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "You're asking to die." "Ha ha." The dragon laughed as if he'd heard the funniest joke in the world. "Still talking tough? Men, teach him a lesson. Beat him until he's ready to talk." 2 huge men stepped forward, holding thick, wet leather whips. Crack! The first lash tore across my back like fire. I bit down hard, refusing to make a sound. Crack! 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 The whips fell like rain, quickly turning my back into a bloody mess. The pain was so intense, I nearly passed out. But I didn't beg. My left, I was scanning everything, searching for an opportunity. I looked at the dragon. His body was healthy, stronger than men half his age. But deep inside his brain, I saw a slowly growing mass. A malignant tumor. At most, he had 6 months to live. That was his weakness. "Stop," the dragon said, seeming to lose his patience. He waved a hand. "It looks like you won't cooperate until you see something you truly care about is at stake." He took out his phone and made a video call. A moment later, Sophia's face appeared on the screen. She was tied to a chair, her mouth covered with duct tape. Tear tracks stained her cheeks, and her eyes were wide with terror. 2 leering men stood beside her, their hands roaming over her body. "Sophia." A roar of pure fury ripped from my throat. "You see this, boy," the dragon said, holding the phone in front of my face with a sadistic grin. "I'll ask you one last time. Do you accept my terms? For every second you hesitate, my men will leave another mark on her." On the screen, one of the men's hands was reaching for the buttons on Sophia's nightgown. "Stop!" I screamed, my eyes bloodshot. "I'll do it. I'll do anything you want. For Sophia, I would give up everything, including my dignity." "You should have just said so from the start," the dragon said with a triumphant smile. He spoke into the phone. "Don't touch her. Bring her here." He hung up and looked at me like a butcher eyeing a lamb. "Now, boy, tell me your secret." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. "My secret is my eye," I said, pointing to my left eye. "It can see the truth in everything." "Oh," the dragon was intrigued. "Show me." "Untie me first." The dragon hesitated, then waved a hand. One of his men came and cut the zip ties. As feeling returned to my wrists, I asked, "What do you want me to see?" "Let's see." The dragon pointed to a pile of scrap metal in the corner. "Tell me which one of those blocks is solid steel." I focused my left eye. The metal became transparent. "Third row from the left, 5th block from the top," I said without hesitation. The dragon nodded. One of his men brought the block over and cut it open with a saw. It was solid. The dragon's eyes lit up. He had never seen such an incredible ability. If he possessed such a power, he would be unstoppable. Wealth, power, everything would be his for the taking. Even his damn brain tumor. Maybe he could find a way to cure it. Greed filled his heart. Good. Very good, he said 3 times. You weren't lying, boy. Now I want you to give me that eye. He wanted to take my eye. Fine, I said, surprising him. But I have one condition. Name it, the dragon said eagerly. I want you to bring all your men here to witness how you get this eye, I said, a strange smile on my face. And I want you to be the one to personally gouge it out. The dragon was taken aback by the request, but then he thought about it. To obtain this godlike eye in front of all his men would only solidify his legendary status. Fine, I accept. He ordered everyone in the warehouse to gather around. Soon, the dragon and I were in the center of a large circle of his men, all of them looking at us with a mixture of curiosity and fanaticism. Well, boy, shall we begin? The dragon asked impatiently. Of course, I said with a smile. Then I looked him straight in the eyes. Dragon, you're 63 years old. You have a malignant brain tumor in your left temporal lobe, and it's starting to press on your optic nerve. Lately, you've been seeing things, haven't you? Hallucinations? Maybe your wife and child, who died years ago. My words struck the dragon like a bolt of lightning. His face went deathly white. This was his deepest secret. No one knew besides his private doctor. How could I possibly know? You're lying, he roared, but the tremble in his voice betrayed his terror. You know I'm not, I continued. Your doctor told you that you have 6 months left, at most. But he lied to you. The tumor is accelerating. You have 1 week. After that, you'll be completely paralyzed, unable to control your own body, and you'll die slowly in agony. Every word was a knife twisting in his heart. His carefully constructed image of a powerful crime lord shattered in the face of his own mortality. No, it's not possible, he stammered, stumbling backward, his face a mask of despair. His men began to murmur among themselves. The fear and reverence in their eyes were gone. How could a dying man lead them? So, do you still want my eye? I asked with a cold smile. Even if you had it, would you have time to use it? A mouthful of blood sprayed from the dragon's lips. Just then, the warehouse doors were kicked open. Sophia burst in, followed by a swarm of people. At the front was the chief of the Port Sterling Police Department himself. Nobody move. Police. Dozens of heavily armed SWAT officers swarmed the warehouse, quickly taking control of the scene. After I was taken, Sophia had immediately called the police. She had used every bit of her influence, every contact, and had pulled every string to get the chief himself to lead the raid. She had come to save me. The dragon looked at the chaos, at the guns pointed at him, and knew it was over. He let out a bitter laugh and pulled a pistol from his jacket, pressing it to his temple. I ruled this city my whole life, he snarled, his eyes filled with hatred as he looked at me. To think I would be brought down by a nobody kid. Bang! A single gunshot echoed through the warehouse. A kingpin's reign was over. The warehouse fell into a dead silence. Sophia ran through the crowd and threw herself into my arms, sobbing. You scare me to death. I thought I'd never see you again. I held her tight, breathing in the scent of her hair, my own racing heart finally beginning to slow. Silly girl, I whispered, stroking her back. Didn't I tell you I'd be back? It was all over. The fall of the syndicate and the death of the dragon sent shockwaves through the city's underworld. And I, Ethan Vance, a nobody from the market, became a legend overnight. Some call me a force of nature. Others said I was touched by God. But I knew the truth. I was just a normal guy who wanted to live a normal life with the woman I loved. By the time I finished my statement at the police station, it was the next morning. Sophia was waiting for me at the entrance. The morning sun highlighted the exhaustion on her face, but the moment she saw me, her expression broke into a brilliant smile. Come on, she said. Let's go home. That one word, home, filled me with a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. Back at the villa, the first thing I did was take a long shower, washing away the blood and grime. When I came out, wrapped in a towel, Sophia had a huge meal waiting for me. Eat up. You must be starving, she said, handing me a bowl of soup. I just looked at her, not moving. What's wrong? Don't you like it? I shook my head, then stepped forward and swept her up into my arms. Hey, what are you doing? She yelped, her cheeks flushing. Dinner can wait. I carried her straight to the bedroom. The fear and the near-death experience had changed something between us. We no longer needed bets to define our relationship, no longer needed words to test each other's feelings. A single look, a single touch was enough. We spent the entire day at the villa, simply enjoying the quiet and sweetness of being alive together. In the afternoon, I was lying on the couch, my head in her lap, watching TV. Her fingers gently combed through my hair. "Ethan," she said suddenly, "are we together now?" she asked, her voice soft and a little hesitant. "What do you think?" I asked, catching her hand and kissing it. She smiled, a genuine, happy smile, like a little kid who'd just been given candy. "So, does our bet still count?" "Which one?" "The one where if I lost, I had to be your woman. And if you lost, you'd let me go." "Of course it still counts," I said, sitting up to look her in the eyes. "But we're adding a new rule." "What is it?" "We're adding a time limit." "What's the time limit?" "Forever." Tears welled up in Sophia's eyes. She didn't say anything. She just leaned in and kissed me. When we finally broke apart, she rested her head on my chest. "Ethan," she whispered, I think I'm really in love with you. I love you too." Outside, the sun was shining, and a gentle breeze was blowing. I thought that was the end of the story. But life is full of surprises. A few days later, an unexpected visitor shattered our peace. It was a rainy afternoon. An old man in a long, flowing robe, holding a paper umbrella, appeared at our gate. He said his name was Elias, and he was my master's brother, my uncle. He said that my eye was called the Eye of Providence, a power passed down through our bloodline. He said that my master, the previous owner of the eye, had been killed by our enemies while protecting me when I was just a child. And now, those enemies had found me. They were from an organization far more powerful and mysterious than the Syndicate, a group called the Conclave. The Conclave's goal was to control every person with special abilities on the planet, to use them for their own ends. Those who joined them thrived. Those who resisted were eliminated. My existence had not gone unnoticed. A far greater danger was approaching. "Ethan, you must come with me," Elias said, his voice grave. "Only by returning to our sanctuary can I keep you safe." I was silent. If I left, what would happen to Sophia? I couldn't leave her here alone to face an unknown enemy. "I'm not going," I said, shaking my head. "If I go, she comes with me." I gestured to Sophia, who was standing beside me. Elias frowned. "She is a civilian. The rules of our order forbid bringing outsiders to the sanctuary." "Then change the rules," I said, my tone firm. You stubborn boy." Elias sputtered. "You're just like your master, a hopeless romantic." Just then, the sound of a dozen engines roared outside the villa. We looked out the window to see dozens of men in uniform surrounding the property. On their uniforms was an ancient-looking symbol, the mark of the Conclave. They were here. The man in the lead, a young man with gold-rimmed glasses who looked more like a professor than a soldier, raised a megaphone. "Mr. Ethan Vance, we are from the Conclave. We have been instructed by our leader to ask you to come with us to assist in an investigation. Please do not resist. It will only make things more difficult." "Uncle, I'll leave them to you," I said to Elias. "Always leaving the hard work to your elders," Elias grumbled, but he walked outside to face them. "I am Elias of the Hidden Mountain. To what do we owe the pleasure of this visit from our friends at the Conclave?" "Elias?" The young man in glasses sneered. "So it's you. If you know what's good for you, old man, you'll hand over Ethan Vance. If not, we'll take you down to—" "Such arrogance!" Elias roared. "If you want my nephew, you'll have to get through me first." There was no more room for talk. A battle was about to begin. I didn't stay to watch. I grabbed Sophia's hand and led her to the basement. It was a panic room she'd had built, stocked with food and water. "Ethan, Sophia began, her voice filled with worry. "Don't be afraid," I said, pulling her into my arms. "As long as I'm here, no one will hurt you." I knew, from this day forward, our peaceful life was over. A life of running and fighting awaited us. But I wasn't afraid, because she was by my side. And for her, I would fight the entire world. The basement light was dim, the air thick with the faint smell of antiseptic. I held Sophia's hand tightly. Her fingers were cool, but she squeezed back, the warmth from her palm a comforting anchor to my racing heart. "Ethan, outside." She trailed off, her voice trembling slightly. I knew what she wanted to say, The panic room was soundproofed, but we could still hear the muffled thuds, the clash of what sounded like metal, and Elias's enraged shouts. It was a battle from another world. The clash between ancient arts and the Conclave's powers was nothing like the brawls with the Syndicate's thugs. "Don't worry," I said, leaning down to kiss her forehead. "Elias is my uncle. He won't let anything happen to us." Even as I said it, my heart was heavy. Through a small ventilation grate, I activated my left eye. The world above became clear. Elias, his white hair flying, wielded his simple walking stick like a deadly weapon. Everywhere it swept, a wave of force sent Conclave agents flying. Their black uniforms tore, revealing high-tech body armor underneath. But the leader, the young man in the glasses, stood back, watching the fight with a cold, detached smile. He hadn't even moved. "Master Elias, why continue this pointless resistance?" he called out, his voice carrying easily over the sounds of battle. "Mr. Vance's Eye of Providence belongs to the Conclave. By protecting him today, you not only failed to save him, but you risked the destruction of your entire order." Elias scoffed, flicking his staff and sending 2 more agents sprawling. "Insolent child, the Conclave's ambition to enslave all gifted individuals is an affront to nature. Do you truly believe you are unopposed?" "Oh," the young man's eyebrow arched. He finally moved. He was impossibly fast, crossing the distance between them in the blink of an eye. His fingers formed a claw, aimed at Elias's throat, radiating a strange, pulling energy. Elias's face hardened. He dodged, his staff moving to intercept the young man's wrist. A loud crack echoed as they both staggered back. Elias's sleeve was torn, and a trickle of blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. The young man adjusted his glasses, his smile turning colder. "Your skills are more impressive than I anticipated, old man. A shame it won't be enough." He snapped his fingers. From outside, more Conclave agents swarmed the property. They carried strange, black carbines that began to hum with a low, blue light. "I'll give you one last chance," the leader said. "Hand over Ethan, and I'll let you walk away." Elias wiped the blood from his lips, his gaze unwavering. "Do your worst. To get to my nephew, you'll have to go through me." "So be it." A flash of killing intent crossed the young man's face. Fire. Beams of blue energy shot from the carbines, converging on Elias. Elias moved quickly, his hands forming a complex symbol in the air. "By the ancient laws, I command the earth to shield me." A translucent golden barrier shimmered into existence around him. The energy beams sizzled against the shield, causing it to ripple violently. Elias's face grew pale. He was straining to maintain the barrier. My stomach sank. He couldn't hold out for long. "Ethan, we have to do something," Sophia said, her eyes resolute. "I'll create a distraction. You get away through the secret exit." I grab her arm. "That's insane. You be killed. It's better than dying down here like rats in a cage," she retorted, her eyes filling with frustrated tears. "The man I love is not a coward who hides in a basement." Her fierce loyalty warmed me to my core. This woman was incredible. "I have a plan," I said, taking a deep breath. The golden light in my left eye intensified. "But I need your help. Anything. Just tell me what to do." I leaned in and whispered my plan in her ear. Her eyes widened in shock. "Are you serious? Can that even work?" "There's only one way to find out," I said with a confident smirk. The Eye of Providence could do more than just see the truth. I'd been practicing. I had discovered it could also influence the latent energy in all things. In the corner of the basement were several of Sophia's prized jade sculptures. Over centuries, these stones had absorbed a tremendous amount of natural energy. My plan was to borrow it. "Ready?" I asked Sophia. She gave a firm nod, her fists clenched. I closed my eyes, and the power in my left eye surged. An invisible force flowed from me into the jade sculptures. Instantly, the carvings began to glow with a soft, ethereal light. A torrent of pure energy flowed up my arms and into my body. I felt power coursing through me, every muscle humming with strength. "Let's go," I yelled, pulling Sophia with me as I charged the heavy steel door of the panic room. With a thunderous crash, I kicked the door off its hinges. The battle upstairs was still raging. Elias's shield was covered in cracks, about to shatter. The conclave agents saw us, and a group of them broke off, moving to intercept us. Ethan Vance, you have a death wish, the leader sneered. I ignored him and turned to Elias. Uncle, let me borrow your staff. Elias, startled but understanding, tossed the wooden staff to me. The moment it touched my hand, I poured the energy I'd absorbed from the jade into it. The simple wooden staff erupted in a blinding golden light, becoming as hard as steel. Today, you'll see the true power of the Eye of Providence. I roared, charging the conclave agents. The staff was a blur of golden light. Wherever it passed, the agents' energy carbines shorted out, their advanced armor shattering like glass. They stared at me in terror, as if I were a demon. The leader's face finally changed. Impossible. The Eye of Providence can't manipulate energy. Anything's possible, I shot back, never slowing down as I closed the distance between us. The conclave has coveted a power it can never hope to understand. The young man's face was grim. He abandoned all pretense and lunged, his hands like claws, radiating a deadly cold. I didn't dodge. My left eye flashed, and I saw the flaw in his attack. Your weakness is the third rib on your left side, I shouted, the tip of my staff lashing out like a striking snake. His eyes widened in shock. He tried to twist away, but he was too slow. The staff grazed his side, tearing through his uniform and drawing blood. He staggered back, his eyes filled with a new kind of fear. You can see my weaknesses. That was just a warning, I said, advancing on him, the energy in my body still surging. Get your men and get out of this city, or none of you will leave here alive. My voice boomed with an authority that shook them to their core. The conclave agents faltered, their morale broken. Elias seized the opportunity. His failing shield exploded outward in a wave of golden light, knocking down the remaining agents. The tables had turned. The leader looked at his defeated men, his face a mask of fury. He knew the fight was lost. Ethan Vance, he spat, his voice laced with venom. The conclave will remember this. We will be back. He waved a hand. Retreat. The agents scrambled to their feet, helping their wounded, and fled the villa. The sound of engines faded into the distance. The battle was over. Elias let out a long breath and stumbled. I rushed to his side. Uncle, are you okay? Just drained, he said, waving me off. He looked at me with pride. Well done, boy. You've truly mastered the eye. Your master would be proud. Sophia ran to my side, her eyes red, but her smile radiant. Sunlight streamed through the shattered windows, warming us. I took Sophia's hand and looked at Elias. So, Uncle, I said with a grin, are you still sure I can't bring a civilian back to the sanctuary? Elias stared at me for a second, then burst out laughing. You stubborn kid. Fine. Rules are made to be broken. If you insist on bringing her, then bring her. He grew serious again. But Ethan, listen to me. The conclave will not give up. The journey to the sanctuary is long and dangerous. You and Ms. Sinclair must be prepared. I nodded and looked at Sophia. She met my gaze, her eyes firm, without a hint of fear. As long as I'm with you, she said, I'm not afraid of anything. My heart swelled. I pulled her into a hug. She was right. As long as we were together, we could face anything. The setting sun cast our long shadows across the ruined garden. Elias stroked his beard, a knowing smile on his face. A new story he knew was just beginning. A few days later, an SUV sped along a winding mountain road. I was driving, and Sophia was sleeping peacefully, her head on my shoulder. Elias was meditating in the back seat. Outside, the world was green and vibrant, a peaceful paradise far from the chaos of the city. I glanced at Sophia, a gentle smile on my face. The road ahead was long and filled with danger, but I knew that as long as we faced it together, there was no challenge we couldn't overcome. The Eye of Providence would protect the woman I loved. And for me, that was enough. End.